Alright, guys, so today we're gonna be reacting to Jordan Peterson confronts Australian politicians on gender and politics and quotas. So we have a Q&A. It's a 4 minutes video. It has a lot of millions of views. I want to know what this back and forth has to do with and how Jordan Peterson handled this. Let's go.
Martin Luther King's dream was that there would come a time when people would not be judged by the colour of their skin but by the content of their character. How is today's identity politics consistent with that vision?
Jordan Peterson.
Well, I don't think it's consistent with that vision at all. I mean, the problem I have with identity politics as a mode of philosophical apprehension is that it's predicated on the idea that the appropriate way to classify people is by their group identity, in whatever fragmentary formulation that might take, in the multiplicity of ways that people can be divided into groups. And the classical postmodern, and I would also say Marxist way of viewing the world, even though those two things shouldn't be allowed together, they tend to be, is that group identity takes priority over individual identity, and I think that's precisely the opposite of what Martin Luther King was hoping for and working for. And I think it's unbelievably dangerous partly because when you assume that people should primarily be identified by their group, then you can also attribute group guilt to them by their group. And then things go downhill very, very rapidly. And we've had no shortage of evidence of that sort of thing happening, say, throughout the 20th century.
Are there particular groups that you are more concerned about than others? For example, the Liberal Party, as Terry Butler said earlier, is a group. Are there groups that...
He has a point. I think sometimes identity politics is a weak conversation, because it's easy to say, it's because this identity, it's because of this thing, it's because of white supremacy, black supremacy, Indian supremacy, women's supremacy. It's very easy to just get confused with those terms. And when you get confused with terms, you open this Pandora box to a political ideology that as soon as just get a small taste of the government, we're gonna go all to hell.
you think are more dangerous?
There isn't a problem with groups. The problem is with assuming that the fundamental way that you should categorize people is with their group identity. Obviously, we all belong to groups. The issue is whether or not the individual identity is primary and the group identity is secondary, or the group identity is primary and the individual identity is secondary. If you're a proponent, for example, of equality of outcome, of quotas, then you de facto accept the proposition that it's the group identity that is primary, and there's all sorts of dangers that are associated with that far outweigh whatever good you're likely to do.
Okay,
Well, maybe you're just...
No, she was not listening. She was not listening, bro. She was not listening. She was trying to shoot from the hip. She was not listening. Not listening. Anything. She was ready with the pistol in her hip. Right? She was ready to go like this and bam, bam, bam. No reason. We have to be careful with who we're spending a lot of energy having these conversations. Things like this, don't waste your time. Confront them. But as soon as you don't see genuine conversation, pull back. Don't waste your time. This right there, he was not listening.
Or maybe you just think that representative democracy should be representative. Maybe you just think that women should be equally represented in the decision-making fora of our nation. Maybe that's really just about
such a
having
feminist-
proper equality.
Feminist point, talking point is crazy, man.
Well, I do believe that women should have... I don't understand your question.
Yeah, what's the...
I guess you don't. That's pretty
I don't.
obvious, unfortunately.
Well, how about if you phrase it more clearly instead of just insulting me?
There we go. That was a test. And you shut it down. You see, she is not there to just have a conversation. She's trying to one-up her. Like, we have to understand that in human biology, genders are very different for the simple fact that we have different roles in society. You might have one or two females that want to be leaders, but by nature, the male has a greater incentive and a greater urge to do so. If we want to have a very, very, very equal society, you have to just have the playing field do his job, right? Because back in the day, we don't have to talk about things. We were physical. If physical dominate you, I'm up over you. I see you down. But now we have a more, modern way to do things. But things hasn't changed though. Talking is just a way for us to avoid to get to that point. But if we're talking real, there was no government or nothing, nature will take over.
Look at it this way. Let's talk about quotas for a minute. So there's a very wide array of jobs that are fundamentally done by men. So, for example,
Member of Parliament.
99.9%
I'm
of
sorry, Alex, I'm going to
bricklayers.
stop sledging you now, I promise.
Ooh.
I'm happy to give my minute to Jordan.
99.9% of
Notice that she's wearing that red. She wants all the attention to be with her.
bricklayers are
Narcissism.
men. Should we have quotas for women?
Is bricklaying representative democracy?
That has nothing to do with the question. The question is if there's evidence of structural inequality and oppression because women aren't precisely represented at 50% in all professions at all levels, then why don't we have a conversation about having women represented in all professions at all levels? Why do we talk about the C-suite, for example? Why do we talk about politics and positions of power? Why don't we talk about it across the board?
Let's talk about power. Let's just make sure we are equal. Let's just send you to war. The next war is going to be 50% men and 50% women. Let's just talk about representation. And then we can have conversations like this. You want to have conversations like this when all the hard work was already done.
Okay,
We're
so
talking about
let's just
politics.
pause and...
Yeah, but that's because
We're
it's
talking about
power.
You pose a question to Terry Butler. Go ahead and answer
Please,
it.
this
Then we'll hear
is
from the other
moderator,
panelists.
Such a simple.
His question to me.
Well, yeah, if you'd,
About
like,
bricklayers.
if you'd like to answer the question about
There's
bricklayers,
nothing wrong with
why there are
bricklayers.
no
Of course
quotas in
there's not.
Oh man, ooh, that was hard to watch, bro. But watch, bro. Jordan Peterson knows his enemy very well. She doesn't know his enemy. She does not know his enemy. She's playing sign language. She was just trying to one up him. Say something. Look at like who's that? Like what are you doing? These are very serious conversations. Are you a serious person? Okay, let's have a serious conversation. You're playing games here, wasting everybody's time. These conversations, right? It could change people's life. Well, you wanna play that role? Okay, I got you. No problem. I got you. I'm gonna write it down. Jordan Peterson does a great job trying to deal with these people because he's a psychologist. He understands. He's very good with the sales tactics as well. He does a very good job controlling conversations. Very good with necks. For those that are part of the pick parts community, you guys understand what a neck is. It's just basically a test or disqualifications for either or parties. She's trying to disqualify herself from him, but he's going back disqualifying him from the conversation. These are very interesting topics to talk about, but this, man, it's just, ooh, it's an interesting back and forth. And if you really grasp what is going on, you will learn a lot. Not what they're saying, but how they are acting. And that's the most important part. Conversation is just a surface, but how they act, it tells you a different story, right? You have to understand, every time that you have conversation with females are going to try to look for outside help to make you look like the bad person. You have to know these things. So it's just nature, biology. I'm not having any kind. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just talking from my experience. Okay, so don't quote me on anything. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm gonna really appreciate it. You guys agree with Peterson? You guys agree with my opinion? Am I losing something? Am I missing something? Just let me know.